Hey, everybody, welcome to the second episode of Cozy Copywriter Chat. I'm your host, Michael or Mike Giannulis, and today we're joined by Elizabeth Haley. Pretty sure I got that right.
Yeah.
You lucked out in that side of the fence there.
Yeah.
It's
Pretty
doing
simple.
the game. Yeah, I haven't been so lucky with that one, but um, all right. So the point of these is we just like to meet people, find out sort of what you do in the copywriting world. Um, I think as we said before we began the call, what I liked about you a lot is that you have a sort of renewed focus, I guess you could say, on the compliance side
Yeah.
of things, and that's that's awesome. We have a lot of people on who will watch the replay who are they're copywriters. They're probably more newer, and they're so I think they would love to hear about how you got into it, what your background is. So if you want to start with that, that would be
Okay.
good for them. Just kind of give them some
Yeah.
inspiration.
Um, so when I first started, I didn't know anything about compliant copy. It's not something that you normally think about when you begin. So I started following all of these other copywriters, the big names, and they started talking about compliant copy. And when you hear something enough, you become interested in it because after like the 20th time you say to yourself, hey, I got nothing, like no idea about it, so this is something that I need to learn and focus on. And that's how I first started into the into this compliant world, so to speak. And then I was introduced to finance, the financial side, which is a pretty it's different from Facebook or from Google. It's like they have compliant copy, but it's it's not the same as real compliancy, talking about within the law.
Yeah,
I hope that makes sense. So FTC compliant copy is the regulatory name for it. I'm not sure if most people know what it stands for, so I guess I'll say the Federal Trade Commission. It's a U.S. agency that enforces um, the it tries to protect consumers against advertisers, and we basically see that in in email, where you can't have just as an example, you can't have emails that you can't, like, people need to be able to unsubscribe from them. That's like one of the laws that the FTC regulates. So if you don't have that, then it's against the law, basically. And we see this down the line with telephones, like telephone compliancy, um, social media, pretty much any type of advertisement out there. So I know that was a long explanation. I'm
no,
sorry about that.
no, it's good. People like this is something that I think isn't talked about enough in the copywriting space because we're always focusing on like how do you sell more, sell more, sell more. But if you don't take time to review those things and make sure they're done in the right way, then you can obviously get yourself in trouble. Like I was saying before, and I've
Yeah.
talked about it before myself. I went through something with the FTC where it wasn't my company directly, but it was a company that we did that we had helped sales with, and because of we got pulled into it because of just
Yeah.
being one step away from them, and so compliance in having a good copywriter who understands that is very very important, and then obviously too an attorney that's very very
Yeah.
competent is the that's your top thing. And I guess I will say on behalf for us both, we're not attorneys and we're not here to give advice right on
Yeah.
that side.
Yeah.
So you always want to make sure that you take care of your own stuff, speak to your own attorney, pay someone. It definitely pays off. So kind of talk about, just to an extent, what attracted you to the financial side. That's kind of where you gravitated
Okay.
towards?
Yeah. So have you heard of Russell Brunson?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So he's pretty famous for his funnels, and I was like watching his stuff, and he mentioned there's only three categories in the space. There's health, wealth, and relationships. So I'm like, hey, I need to pick one of those topics. And it took me a while to figure out I wanted to go into the wealth space, but when I first thought about wealth, I thought of those scams,
Yeah.
all of those uh get rich quick schemes, basically. Um, with the stock market, all of those stuff, all of that scammy copy, basically. So I didn't really want to do that, but that's what I wanted to write about. So um, when I got into the compliant side and started learning about one of the things that were happening was um, the income illusion. So basically, a lot of the financial companies were getting fined by the FTC, and because I saw that was happening, I decided, hey, I could actually get into this space and use what I know about compliancy and put it into the finance niche. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Yeah. And so basically, yeah, because I agree, the issue with so much of that space is non-compliancy, right? They push the envelope with their ads, with their claims, and then that ends up causing issues. So your goal was, how do I get involved in that space but not use those
Yeah.
tactics to
Yeah.
sell? So what kind of offers do you find yourself now getting,
Um,
to write?
so I'm more in, I don't really write about the stock market, although I got knowledge in that area. I mostly right now writing about private equity, and I also somehow ended up writing about this health gig I'm doing right now, but that's a separate story. So yeah, basically private equity because it's more, how to say this, it's less get quick rich
Yeah.
type of deal.
Yeah.
And I personally do I'm okay with writing about the stock market. It's just I don't know how to find a word for this, but it's basically like I said, it's non-compliant. It's that simple. It's non-compliant copy, and
Yeah.
that's what people want you to write about.
Yeah, because,
So
and that's the big thing too. Like one of the big things is, if you're, just even forgetting about the fact that you should be following like the FCC, the
FTC,
FCC, you also, if you're writing non-compliant stuff, it's very hard to even run ads. You can't even get your ads to run. Um, and you're right. A lot of people think of that as being compliant, but just because your ads are approved also doesn't mean that you are compliant, legally speaking. You
yeah,
may be compliant for the ad platform, but not, it's not
yeah. So
completely.
so that's an interesting thing too, because let's just say that you wrote an amazing headline for an email, and then you send it, and like people open it, you get sales, but there's a high percentage rate that the email is going to go into the spam folder. So it's a balancing act. You got a 50-50 shot in landing into the spam folder, and you got another shot at landing into people's actual email box and people clicking on it, and people will click on it because it's one of those headlines that is meant to sell people. But nowadays, I would say probably millennials, Z Geners, they were probably more skeptical of these headlines.
Yeah.
So they aren't as likely to open them. But with, let's say, people older than 60, they will absolutely click on them, and that's who the financial publishers are targeting. So it's really important to understand that difference.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I do think I'm seeing that as well. There's definitely a shift as the generations age out. There's I do think that millennials are a little they're definitely a lot more skeptical. They're way more savvy. They kind of understand what's they don't really go for the only 5 spots open. They're like, yeah, right. They don't believe it. And Gen Z, I think, is even more extreme than that. They just think they just shut it all off. They don't care. Like I joke about the next generation after them, they're calling it Generation A or Generation Alpha, and those are basically the current iPad babies. All the little,
Yeah.
they're coming next, and Lord knows what they're going to be like. Because they're the first generation raised completely on technology, like from day one.
Yeah.
So that's going to be kind of neat to see what they turn into. But the funny thing is, yeah, this is new in a sense, but it's also something that's been talked about a lot. Like Eugene Schwartz talks about that in the sense that markets become more aware, and that's basically what we're seeing. So the market sophistication is advancing. So when the market becomes more sophisticated, our job as the people that write ads is to decide how do we still speak to that audience in a way that's probably more transparent, more honest, more upfront, more open, and how do we do that? And so like one of the things that I teach people all the time is to not make a fuss. And when I talk about fuss, it stands for fear, urgency, scarcity, and strategic manipulation. So if you read all the copybooks, you get that. They teach that a lot. Use
Yeah.
fear, bash them in the head with fear, urgency, they got to act right now, scarcity, there's only 5 left, and then manipulation, like how do you do this and can you make them feel this way? And I think while there's a place for those, if they're done ethically, I think at the end of the day, like you said, the they don't work like they did, right? They're
Yeah.
dying out. I think that urgency and scarcity work when it's obviously real. So if you
Yeah.
have an event like I'm going to launch a new company, and we're going to make sure that the front end is an event, because events by their very nature create urgency and create scarcity, because people, they understand an event can only hold so many people, and that's your scarcity. And they understand that an event has a start date and then an end date, and you can pretend all you want, but it's true, if you don't sign up by the day the event starts, you're not going to get a seat, right? So um, I think that's partially how I'm restructuring some of the things that I do, is how do I make a better product and make it more live? Because I think that's also a big thing for anyone that's in publishing. I think that we're starting to see the very starts of the crack of the whole course model. And by that I mean so many people sell courses, right? We've seen this huge uptick. When I started way back in the day, now I'm an old man now. I'm a boomer. No, not quite, but I feel like one. But yeah, I mean, when I started, when you made a course, it was kind of cool because it wasn't that much. It was like 2008, 9, 10. Now it's like everyone you meet, it's like, oh, have you got my course? I've got a course, and they all got a course. And but the thing is, the dirty secret of a course is that hardly anyone goes through the whole thing. Very very few people do, and that's always been something that bothers me. And even I don't know if you've ever heard of a MOOC, MOOC. That's a massive online open course. It's like the colleges that are giving away courses free. So they're like
Yeah.
Harvard and Yale and Princeton, all these top schools. You can take anything you want pretty much free. Even they have just an abysmal rate of people that go through it, and they're getting like free Harvard. We
Yeah.
have a few people that are going to join. Cool. So it's really crazy to think that you have to mute. Hey guys, welcome. I'm gonna mute you as you jump in. But yeah, so anyway, I was just gonna say before I got lost there, but the whole idea is I think that the more you can insert live interactions into your stuff, that's one way to get around that compliancy thing. So anyway, what are your thoughts on that? Have you dealt with that any or seen any
Um,
of that?
I have a lot of thoughts. I don't even know where to begin, really. I would say if you're going to use fear or urgency or any of those type of tactics, you need to be specific. And this is true for any type of copy, whether it's health, wealth, or relationships. Um, so that's always important. Even and when you make claims, you're going to have to go to your lawyer and tell them how you found out your claim. Like, you can't just say, hey, I got 5,000. Like, the customer could earn $5,000. Like, you need to back that up. Number one is you're claiming $5,000. Now, it could be like 4,213, and you need to be that specific, or else it's not going to work out. And number two is you're going to need to explain how you got to that number. And number three, if you are going to use a number like that, you're going to have other numbers that are similar and back that up. The, um, so those are the three main categories that I always think about when I write copy. If they don't meet those three, then I can't use it. So it's really important that when you talk to someone, that you can ask the person with the product to provide you with their proof as to how it's worked out. So I will just use an example. This is before the finance niche. When I started going into the finance niche, I was someone approached me to write a product for them. To write about their product, and so they tell me about their product. It sounds great, wonderful, great person, love the person. The one problem though, when I ask them, do you have any proof, does it work? Guess what? No proof. Like, what am I supposed to say about that?
Yeah.
So
And that's and that's such a big thing too. And I think this is again something that isn't really talked about a lot because copywriters, we're really good at marketing. We're really good at making the best, putting the best foot forward. We can, some will call it spin, right?
yeah.
Spinning things, and there is it is sort of an ethical gray area with, because every company in a sense is going to produce, is going to, obviously they're going to share their best examples, their best results. Food companies take the best photo of that food you're ever going to see. You know, I've bought plenty of,
McDonald's.
yeah, I bought tons of food and it never comes out like you see it on the ad. And we kind of understand that. But there is a big gap, I think, sometimes between the focus on look how much I sold versus look how well I helped people, right?
Yeah.
Most every other company, every other product, you know, you live and die by the product.
Yeah.
When in the direct response space, it's almost as if you live and die by the copy, right? And the
Yeah.
product. And that's because I think, it's just my view, is that there is such a, especially when you're doing courses and you're doing info, there's such a low take rate of people who actually either consume it, or if they do consume it, that actually take action on it.
Yeah.
So there is a trade-off there, because at the end of the day, I mean, I've sold a lot of similar type programs. I've always felt like what I did was, I thought at the time, especially, that I was doing the best that I knew. But as I've gotten older and I look back on it, I think, man, I think I see where a lot of people didn't take action. And I think because of my positive attitude, I always thought, if I can do this, and so can you. But the older I've gotten, I kind of see now that a lot of people just probably should never be in this space. They should never buy these things. And so, how do you weed those people out, though? That's sort of the challenge, you know.
I would say definitely the copy. You need to write to an audience that if the audience cannot say, "Hey, that's me," then you are weeding out the customer that's not your audience. So I feel like this is a pretty big problem um, in general, because I've also worked with a lot of like newer people in the space. So they just got their products, and they've never sold their product before. And so when we talk about everything, like go down the whole 9 yards of their marketing plan, um, they they um they get lost because they want to try to target everyone. Like
Yeah.
the more people that hear about their product, the more people are going to buy it. But you don't want to sell, I always use this example, you don't want to sell coffee to someone who doesn't drink coffee, you know? So you need to weed out those people who don't do it. So here's a simple example. So say you're selling coffee, and how do you weed out people who don't drink coffee? Number one is to say, hey, this is coffee and it is absolutely delicious. You're going to knock out those people right away. So you need to think in the extremes like this. If you can write your copy in that way, can think about it in that way, that's how you weed them out. But that's really difficult to do when we were talking about like courses, coaches, and all of that, the info space.
That's great. Yeah, and I teach that too in some ways, that you want to, yeah, you want to do everything you can to sort of uh, weed people out. Yeah, Max is great. He says you can't sell the world's best barbecue to a vegetarian. Right? That's spot on, Max. And that is a big issue, and that's what I tell people this all the time. Like, I think you could write mediocre copy to the right audience will 10 times outperform great copy to the wrong audience.
Yes.
And then, even if you end up selling, let's even say you pull it off and you convince people that maybe aren't a great fit to still buy it. Well, what I've seen is that all that ever does in the end is increase refunds and chargebacks and complainers and problems, and it shortens the life cycle of the entire company. Because you're at that point, you're not serving them. You're, in a sense, you serve yourself.
Yeah, that really goes back to FTC compliance too. Like all of the reasons you just stated is the reasons why you should do compliance copy,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Do you know of anyone at this point right now that's really teaching compliance?
Um, Jake Hofburg does compliance, so he's a great person. I love his honesty. He wrote, uh, you know how some people try to be nice? Well, he's honest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in his group too, and
yeah,
actually, I had a call with him last week actually, and we may do a deal with him. We're seeing, but it's pretty cool because yeah, I like his approach, and I know he came out of that world, so I know for him it's kind of a personal thing too. Like he's
yeah,
wants to kind of fix a lot of that stuff, and that's cool.
yeah. He's for people who don't know him, he's from Agora Financial.
Yeah.
So they are a big financial publisher, and they are known to write about the stock market and other investment opportunities. But the thing is that they got caught up in the uh the the illusion. What's it called?
Well, we can just say that basically they're going through some things right now. Then they're trying to straighten it out. I don't,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
don't like it. I don't ever know. We don't know the details of everything, but you don't ever know. And so I just say, they're going through whatever they are, and I think they'll come out of it a better company and learning from it. That's my hope. I know that I did with what I went through. And so I think that's a big process. And the reality is most people, just because of the way it is, most people won't ever have to deal with companies or the government in that way, because usually they go after you if you're pretty big. They're not after like one
yeah,
guy, because it's just that they don't have the resources. But it's still very important if you're going to write for other companies, if you bring that as a skill set,
yeah,
people love that. I mean, me even, I hire people all the time to write for me, and I'm all the time like asking, is this compliant? Have you done this before? Because a lot of people think, because they're trained up in the copywriter way, their idea is just find the biggest, craziest stat they can find or whatever, and put on guarantee. Who else wants a 1,000% returns in 7 days, guaranteed, no risk? Well, obviously we all would, but that's not real life, right? Um, and so, but like you brought up, that stuff is going to die out on its own anyway, I think, because
yeah,
people are just like, this is just so awful, right? You're going to only attract the most naive possible, and those people are, they're aging out now, right? The
yeah,
newer people are more savvy around computers. They kind of understand it, and so they're not going to fall for that same stuff. At least that's my
yeah.
hope. That's my hope anyway.
So, what I was trying to say was Operation Income Illusion. So, what this was, last year, um, the FTC decided that they would really crack down on the big publishers like Agora Publishing, that's where Jake's from, and Red, like all of the big ones. And then they all got fined millions of dollars, and now we're at this place here in 2021 after all of that's happened. It's financial compliancy is becoming uh, really big. So if you haven't heard of it, that's probably somewhere you really need to start looking into, because everyone's looking for it. Everyone. So, and no one, I feel like, as for me as a copywriter, and for you as a copywriter, um, It's just this compliancy is something that you should have a personal connection with because you don't want to scam people.
Yes.
And so you need to be aware of what you can say and what you shouldn't say and what is allowed. I would say like there's certain words and phrases you shouldn't use. So for example, financial freedom, it's not a good word, like a good phrase to use. Don't say believe or um hope or any of those words. Like those words are off limits and they will get you into trouble.
Yeah, there's a
So,
lot.
yeah.
What else? Yeah. Maybe just give us a few more
Um,
things there that we should watch out.
like anticipate, estimate, can, will, should, likely. Like if you say you're likely to earn $5,000, that's a problem because you're not backing it up with anything. You're just saying likely. Well, how likely are you, you know?
What do you have to do? What, in your experience, just, what are you being told is a requirement to prove something?
Okay, so first is that let's just say that you have like an info product and you have, let's just say, let's keep it simple. You got 10 customers and 7 out of those 10 customers made $1,000 off of the info product. Now you can use that $1,000 and say that's what people made because it's true. 7 out of 10 people did. You can use that fact. But if they only made $500 and you're saying that other people can make 1,000, you can't do that. It's you are over exaggerating it. You don't have proof. You it's not an exact figure. It's you have to be specific. You have to give proof. It has to be common, like common enough. And um you always need to talk to your lawyer. And your lawyer needs to tell you if your proof is enough to make it okay. If your lawyer says like, oh, you don't need proof, that's a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes, you definitely want to make sure. So yeah, and that's part of the thing that I went through and sort of figured out too. Like, that you want to, you should never, even if you can prove it, even if it is true, there's still a lot of times because people have a lot of doubt too. So many times it's better to show just a more regular, believable stat as opposed to your biggest, best, baddest, re- result.
Yeah, so and this also applies to like the health niche too. I feel like a lot of people aren't really interested in the health niche. Um, it's so cool to write about a product that helps calm people down. Um, but the problem with that is that you can't say certain words in a health niche either. Just as you can't say you can earn $5,000 in the financial niche. You can't promise someone that they will be killed from depression with this one simple trick. It just does not work that way. Um, so it's all like health, wealth, relationships. It's all in there. It applies to everyone, no matter what niche you are in. Um, so I have an example of this. I found a Facebook post where they were asking for someone to rewrite their post for them. So I found that the number one problem with their post was that it's not compliant. So how do you change something that's not compliant into something compliant is probably the number one question
Yeah.
everyone wants to know.
Yeah.
Um, so the number one way is to make a story about it. So here's an example. Let's just say that the product may help anxiety, nervousness, and depression. Okay, that sounds great. Like, who doesn't want that? But it's not, you can't say that. So, um, you need to write a story about it. So, here's an example. Um, and I'm reading this off. So, I didn't know what it was. Like, this is about sandalwood. So, my husband took the kids in the morning and gifted me sandalwood. I didn't know what it was until the room filled the air with a soft, deep, woody scent. It tasted sweet and felt like I was in a room with a bunch of floral. I felt soothed and relaxed after all the hours I've been working. I feel like I have space in my mind again. So this example, it, it's basically saying the same thing. It's calming the nerves. It's helping depression, but you're not directly saying those words. And that's super important to know.
Yeah, you're basically giving a story that kind of explains the feeling or the vibe or the result, but without promising it or stating it directly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
So this is what I love doing is making stories about something. If you can make a story about it, then you can say everything you wanted to say, but in a more compliant way. That's key. So I'll paste the example in the chat. So like I said, if you can say the same thing, you can be specific. You can give proof. It's you can almost say everything you wanted to say and get away with it. It's just certain words you can't say and you need to stay away from them.
Nice. This is good. I'm gonna share this in the Facebook chat too. This is great. Um, so basically, yeah, that story angle, being able to share that story, that's a big thing. And I guess it's also important to reiterate too, like you want to use true stories too.
Yeah.
The best you can do with that. Obviously, you can. I do believe, and again, don't quote me on this, but I do believe you're allowed to sort of kind of tell a story if it's like based on a true story and without revealing. Some people don't want to reveal everything about them, themselves, and you can also do what's called a composite of maybe a few different people's story. But again, consult with your attorney on that. But that, I believe, is one of the ways. I'm going to go ahead and add this in. Example from Elizabeth.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point that you just made. Um if I would say if you're consulting with your attorney and you have the story and they say it's a no, well, there's something about the sub. It's probably the words within the story that's the problem. So you need to change your words and make the story more believable, or take your story from someone and ask them if you can use it. Because let's just say like I'm happy with your product and I'm one of your biggest fans. Why would I not want you to share my story? You know? So you can just ask people, can I use your story for my product? And then you can just write about it.
Yep, and people love that, the stories. I'm telling you, I've been able to use stories so much as a way to kind of hook people in, because our brains are just geared for stories, right? Like we just enjoy them. And so that's why we go see films and read books and all the things that we do, because we just love a real good story. All right. So, how could people find you if they wanted to get some more help or some more ideas, or how would they
Um,
find you?
yeah, definitely LinkedIn. That's my number one place. Um, Definitely contact me, message me, and if you want my email, and just contact me on LinkedIn, and we can exchange emails.
Awesome. And then if you want, I'll grab your profile link and I'll throw it in the chat
Yeah,
for everyone too. Okay. Well,
yeah. So, like I've been saying, stories. If you want to make your copy compliant, try to make it into a story if you can. And if you have facts and you want to use them, make sure to run them by your lawyer first, and make sure they are real facts and not magical facts. Magical saying fake facts. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Um, and number three is um, m- make sure to know what you can't say. That's super important. Can't use certain words, can't use certain phrases. If the phrase is going to go into the spam folder, that's probably not a phrase you should use.
Yes, exactly.
And it's probably not a compliant phrase anyway if it's going to the spam folder. So you're looking out there.
Agreed. 100%. I was able to share your link there. All right.
Thank you.
So we don't have a ton of questions here for this one, and that's fine, because I think we actually have went through have I mean, we did cover quite a bit. So I'll give you the final word if you just want to kind of wrap it up, say something cool, kind of inspire people. Maybe we'll call it a day.
Um, yeah, I would just say to look into the Operation Income Illusion. That's if you are interested in compliancy, because that's definitely the go-to thing you need to know. And number two would be just have fun with your copy. Just make a story up, and if it's one of several ways you can ma- start making copy more compliant. And number three, always talk to your lawyer.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, and make sure it's a good lawyer too.
That's number four. I was gonna say that was from my experience. You make sure it's a really good one with experience that you can really trust. Um, and yeah, if you ever need any referrals on that front, I've got a bunch now. So feel free to reach out to me as well. I'm gonna actually try to get an attorney on soon enough. I'm trying to speak to them now, so we'll do a whole big training on that too. So
That's awesome.
I'm very pumped with that. I'm going to try to get three of them on at one time. I may even do like a paid, cheap 30 or 40 bucks, but I want to have an SEC attorney, an FTC attorney, and an FDA attorney, and we'll do like a round table thing, and maybe make it 2 or 3 hours long. I think you'd be in for that one. I think you would enjoy that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So that's pretty cool because to have that like you either you need to go up to one and talk to one yourself, or you're just screwed.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And all three of them are currently on our payroll in some way, shape, or form. So that's how I have them. But the thing is, you got to be careful because they also want to protect themselves too with how they
yeah.
say things. So I'm negotiating with them all to see if they'll
Uh-huh.
come on. We'll see. But that would be cool. So if I do that, that may be something. I just don't know how many people, sadly,
Yeah.
don't know if people care. There's not many people like you out there yet. I do think it's on the way, though. I do think people are
Yeah.
going to go towards that way.
It's kind of like at the maybe the Microsoft 1984 kind of start,
Yeah.
where it's a personal computer, but it's not. No one has it inside of
Yeah.
the home yet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's at that phase.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it. All right. Well, Elizabeth, thank you again so much for your time. This has been great. This is actually my first compliance talk, so it was actually way more fun than I was expecting it to be. You know,
Uh,
it's not the most sexy topic, right? But
yeah,
I think it's,
it's kind of boring actually.
but I think we did pretty good
Yeah,
for what it was. And again, our goal is, just every day we want to help make the industry better, right? And I
yeah,
think that's what it takes. If all we got, if we only helped one person to go read about the operation income illusion,
illusion. Yeah.
then they'll see it, and maybe they'll start to think about the way they write their ads, and we can start to kind of fix things from the inside out.
Yes.
That's what we're
And
at.
I feel like a lot of big copywriters are into this right now. So if you're not into it right now, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, you will be. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks for being here, guys. Make sure you go check her out. I will put a LinkedIn, her link in the description too, so you can always go find her. And if you need compliant copy, she's the one for you. Go and find her. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for being
Thank
here.
you.
We'll see you guys again soon. You can always find me at copywriterbrain.com. But I never really advertise myself, but that's fine. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.